This is Logan Blackwood, reporting for International Desk. This morning, the world's best hope for ending the most dangerous energy crisis in modern history was boarding a plane. Steve Witkoff, Trump's special envoy to the Middle East. Jared Kushner, Trump's senior advisor and son-in-law. Two of the most powerful negotiators in the United States government. They were scheduled to fly 18 hours to Islamabad, Pakistan. They were going to sit across from Iran's side. They were going to try, for the second time, to reach a deal that would reopen the Strait of Hormuz, lift the blockade, and bring this conflict one step closer to resolution. Then, this afternoon, Trump canceled the trip. The reason he gave? Too much time wasted on traveling, too much work. Iran's foreign minister had already left Islamabad. He landed in Oman, and he posted a message online that said he had yet to see if the United States is truly serious about diplomacy. The ceasefire is still technically in place, but the only diplomatic channel that existed between Washington and Tehran has just gone silent. On the same day, oil crossed $105 a barrel. On the same day, Iran's military command issued a new threat warning. And on the same day, the world's most critical oil waterway remained functionally closed. This happened this afternoon, in the last few hours, and it changes everything about where this conflict goes next. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what happened in Islamabad today, what Iran demanded, why the US walked away, what both sides are now saying publicly, and why the collapse of this diplomatic moment may be the most consequential development of this entire conflict since the ceasefire was agreed 18 days ago. Stay with me, because what just happened in Pakistan today will determine what happens in the Strait of Hormuz tomorrow. Think about a property negotiation that has been going on for months. Two parties. A deal that both sides say they want. A neutral mediator, Pakistan, who has worked for weeks to get both sides in the same building. The buyer's representatives board a plane, 18 hours of travel, they land, they are ready to sign. But the seller has already left the building. And when the buyer's representatives finally walk in, there is no one there to meet them. That is what happened in Islamabad today. Except the property is not a building, it is the Strait of Hormuz. The price of failure is not a stalled real estate deal. It is a continued war, a closed waterway, oil at $105 a barrel, and the growing risk that a conflict with a death toll already approaching 6,000 people enters a second, more violent phase. Here is the exact sequence of events, as it unfolded today in real time. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi arrived in Islamabad, Pakistan on Friday. He met with Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. He met separately with Pakistan's Army Chief, Field Marshal Asim Munir, the man who has been the central figure in Pakistan's mediation effort. He delivered Iran's list of demands for ending the war to Pakistani officials. He described the visit as very fruitful. He said Iran had shared its position on a workable framework to permanently end the war, but he did not commit to meeting the American delegation. And then, before Witkoff and Kushner had even landed, Araghchi departed Islamabad and flew to Oman. About an hour after Araghchi left, Trump made his decision. The American delegation was not going. The trip was canceled. Trump told Axios directly, "I see no point in sending them on an 18-hour flight in the current situation. It is too long. We can do it just as well by telephone. The Iranians can call us if they want. We are not going to travel just to sit there." He added, "We have all the cards. We are not going to go there to sit around talking about nothing." Araghchi posted his response almost simultaneously. He said Iran had yet to see if the United States is truly serious about diplomacy. Two governments, both claiming the other side is not serious, and a closed waterway in between them that is costing the global economy billions of dollars every single day. But here's where it gets worse. The reason this collapse matters more than any previous diplomatic failure in this conflict is the context surrounding it. Both sides came into today knowing the stakes. The ceasefire, extended by Trump earlier this week, has no fixed new expiration date, but it is fragile, it is contested, and it is now being held together by nothing except the absence of active combat. There is no agreed framework. There is no defined path forward. There is now, after today, no scheduled diplomatic contact between the two sides at all. Let's go through the receipts. Receipt number 1. What actually happened in the Islamabad talks and why they failed before they started. The core problem is structural, and it has been there since the ceasefire began. Iran walked into Pakistan with a precondition. The United States must lift the naval blockade before substantive negotiations can begin. Iran's foreign minister stated this clearly in his meetings. The blockade, Iran argues, is a violation of the ceasefire terms, an act of economic warfare during a declared truce. Iran's position is that sitting down to negotiate while under an active economic siege is not negotiation. It is surrender. The United States' position is the opposite. The blockade is leverage. It is the mechanism through which Iran is losing $500 million per day. It is costing Iran's oil wells permanent geological damage by forcing production to continue with nowhere for the oil to go. Trump said explicitly this week that the blockade will not be lifted until a deal is struck, not as part of negotiations, as a result of them. These two positions are not just far apart, they are structurally incompatible. Iran says, lift the blockade first, then we talk. The US says, make a deal first, then we lift the blockade. Neither side has shown any willingness to move off those positions. And today, when the only scheduled opportunity to bridge that gap was canceled, the incompatibility became impossible to ignore. And this is where everything changes. Iran's top military command issued a new statement today, timed almost precisely to the collapse of the talks. Iran's Khatam al-Anbiya Central Headquarters, the Joint Military Command, said that if the United States continues its blockade of Iranian ports, it will face the response of Iran's powerful armed forces. The statement added that Iran possesses greater authority and readiness than before to defend its sovereignty, territory, and national interests. This is the same command structure that warned, 2 days ago, of much more devastating retaliation if civilian infrastructure is targeted. This is a pattern. Every time diplomatic progress stalls, Iran's military apparatus publicly signals that it has not stood down. It is a deliberate message, calibrated to reach Washington, to reach the markets, and to reach every government watching. Receipt number 2. Trump's position, and why the cancellation is more significant than his words suggest. Trump's stated reason for canceling was logistical. Too much travel. Too much time. The Iranians can call us. But the actual reason, according to reporting from Axios, CNN, and Al Jazeera, is that Iran's foreign minister left Islamabad without committing to meet the American delegation. Trump was not sending his 2 most senior envoys on an 18-hour flight to meet with Pakistani officials who would relay messages back to Tehran. He was sending them to meet Iran directly. When that meeting became impossible, because Arachi had already left, the trip had no purpose. But here is what that reveals. The entire Pakistan Channel, the architecture that Pakistan's prime minister, its army chief, and its diplomatic corps have spent weeks constructing, just produced a meeting between Iran's foreign minister and Pakistani officials that generated no commitment from Iran to engage with the United States directly. Iran came to Islamabad. It delivered its demands. It left. It did not wait. Trump's response was to pull his delegation and post on social media that there has been too much time wasted on traveling. But Bloomberg noted immediately that the cancellation raises serious questions about the durability of the current ceasefire. Former U.S. Ambassador to Oman, Mark Sievers, had said this week that the Pakistan talks represented the last chance for an agreement before the ceasefire expires. That last chance did not happen today. What most people are missing is this: Iran's internet blackout, imposed when the war began on February 28th, has now lasted 57 days, more than 1,340 hours. The Iranian people have been cut off from the global internet for the entirety of this conflict. NetBlocks, the Internet Monitoring Organization, noted this week that the blackout stifles the voices of Iranians, leaves families out of touch, and damages the economy. Nearly 3,400 people have been killed inside Iran since the U.S.-Israeli strikes began, more than 2,200 in Lebanon. Over 370 American service members have been injured, and the conflict's human cost is accumulating every single day that no deal exists. Receipt number 3. What the markets registered today and what it tells us about where this is heading. Oil crossed $105 a barrel yesterday. This is the highest level since the early days of the war. It reflects one thing above all else. The market is no longer pricing in a near-term resolution to the Hormuz crisis. When the ceasefire was agreed on April 7th and Iran briefly signaled it would reopen the strait, Brent fell 14% in a single day. The market wanted to believe the crisis was ending. Now, 18 days later, with no deal, a collapsed diplomatic meeting, a continued blockade, and Iran's military issuing new threat warnings, the market has stopped believing. $105 oil means supply chains are tightening further. It means inflation pressure is not easing. It means the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, and every other major central bank is watching an energy shock that was supposed to be temporary become structural. The EU has now spent more than $28 billion in additional energy costs since the war began. European gas prices remain elevated. US gas is above $4 a gallon. And the Energy Secretary's prediction that prices may not return below $3 a gallon until next year is beginning to look optimistic rather than pessimistic. The Strait of Hormuz remains functionally closed. The dual blockade remains in place. Iran's military remains deployed in the strait. US carrier strike groups remain positioned in the region, and as of this afternoon, there is no scheduled meeting between the two sides. But here's where it gets worse. Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian issued a statement this week that captured the depth of the problem with a single sentence. He wrote, "Deep historical mistrust in Iran toward US government conduct remains. Unconstructive and contradictory signals from American officials carry a bitter message. They seek Iran's surrender. Iranians do not submit to force. That is not a negotiating position. That is a description of a relationship so damaged that the structural preconditions for a deal may not currently exist." The first round of talks in Islamabad produced no deal after 21 hours of negotiation. The second round never happened. And the gap between the two sides' positions, on the blockade, on Iran's nuclear material, on the terms for reopening Hormuz, has not visibly narrowed at all. One analyst described the best realistic outcome from these talks as an agreement on general principles and a ceasefire extension. Not a deal, not a reopening, just a framework for continued talking. That outcome did not materialize today. What materialized instead was Iran's foreign minister leaving Islamabad without meeting the Americans, and Trump canceling the trip within the hour. If this is connecting dots you haven't seen anywhere else, subscribe to International Desk right now. Hit the bell. Because this story is developing by the hour, and the next move, from either side, could come at any moment. Here is where we stand tonight. Trump's two most senior envoys, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, will not be flying to Pakistan. Iran's foreign minister has left Islamabad and landed in Oman. The Pakistan diplomatic channel, which took weeks to build, produced no direct US-Iran contact today. Iran's military command issued a new threat within hours of the collapse. Oil is trading at $105 a barrel. The naval blockade continues. The dual blockade of the Strait of Hormuz continues, and there is no scheduled diplomatic contact between Washington and Tehran. The ceasefire is technically still in place, but a ceasefire without diplomacy is not a path to peace. It is a pause. And pauses do not last indefinitely, especially when both sides are simultaneously issuing military threats, moving military assets, and hardening their preconditions. The deal that the world needed today did not happen, and the cost of that failure will be measured in oil prices, in inflation numbers, in the 230 tankers still stranded inside the Persian Gulf, and in the lives of the people caught in the middle of a conflict that neither side has yet found a way to end. I'm Logan Blackwood. This has been International Desk, and this might only be the beginning.